continuer in anglais. Dear ladies and gentlemen, organizers, thank you very much for inviting me and thanks for being here. I hope you understand the English because my French is not good enough to present with today. Anyway, as I was presented, I'm head of a global organization for women. We are called Women International Networking, and we were born back in '98. And our purpose was to make it, and it still is, to make it easier for women who work and live internationally. So primarily women who work and live in another country other than their own homeland. And with time, we are also working very much on making everyone find an uplifting thing to do in life. Today, I've been asked to talk a little bit about integration and identity. And there were 3 questions that came to my mind, and I think we could ask that to all of us. First, what can be done to build relationships better so that we can integrate without losing our identity? And what is each and every one of us contribution to this? And what approaches are needed to come up with win-win solutions to integrate better without losing identity? And then what and why is it so important that women now play a protagonist role in Switzerland and in the world? So just a few things. I have lived quite in different countries, but I never lived in Africa. I lived in Asia, I lived in Japan, Australia, and for many, many years now in Italy before I came to Switzerland about 2 years ago. And I grew up in Norway and lived all my life there and studied in Oslo. I was quite active. I did spend about a year as a member of the African Culture Center trying to learn African dancing. And the African teacher was quite frustrated and tearing his hair of the stiff Norwegian women. But after a while we were learning. Anyway, I had a passion to learn about different cultures because I see the world is going, it's becoming a global place. And not only is it the globalization of the economy and technology, but with the exchange of people moving, there is also an exchange of culture and even a raising of our consciousness that needs to integrate different ways of thinking, being, and sensing the world. When I was living in Italy, I thought that was very exciting, but I also met the situation that being a foreigner, speaking with an accent, having a different mindset, was, yes, exciting and interesting, but also at times very difficult. In Japan, it was also difficult because I looked so different. But in Italy, I could integrate in the ways of looking, but in thinking and doing things, it was hard. And I also realized that it wasn't only what you knew, but very much who you knew. And I realized that a lot of it also for women could be double complicated. So I got very involved in a local women's network, and I realized that the community of the other women was so important to me. I probably first thought that was interesting because of the context and what I could do, but I also realized that at a human level, the community of being together is also so important. And that's something I admire. I feel already in this group, there is a strong community sense, and I think that's something we must not ever lose. So working with this women's network, I thought, hey, you know, the world is globalizing. Let's invite women from all over the world. And so I started a work with a group of friends from basically all over the world to start an annual conference called Women International Networking, that's now a global leadership forum. And this was back in '98, and about 150 women came. It's grown, and since then I moved to Switzerland. And last year in Geneva, we had 500 women coming from 58 different nationalities, and also Africa, from South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, and Tanzania. We also had Lady Gertrude Mongel, that was head of the African Union. So we're trying to do more networking to get more Africans to come, both from Africa and Africans in other countries, as well as the Asians, the Americans, and the Europeans, and Latin Americans. What are we doing with WIN? Our network, we're trying to get the people from all over all continents together, and together build, spread information about the world, where it's going, to make sure that we are part of the globalization and the economy. Learn the skills so that we're all, as women, and men for that sake, but we are focusing on the women, up and able to compete at that same level. And at the same time, we are spreading cultural exchanges and networking. And I think networking, or let's call it building relationship, having the opportunity to spend time with people of other cultures, because once we know each other, once you sit together and do something together, that's when I think the barriers of closeness breaks down. And a lot of trouble is based in the world, I think, because we don't know each other and because of fear. But once we get together and do things together, so much beautiful can happen. So that's probably what drives my motivation and the women in my board. And in WIN, we are also consciously trying to walk the talk. So I have one girl in my office from Ghana, and we have one from Latin America, a couple of Europeans and an American. So we're trying to kind of practice this every day of being together. So a little bit about the question here. So what do I think is important for integration and not losing your identity? My own practice, probably mostly when I lived in Italy, because in Japan I really understood that to integrate here was almost impossible. But I tried my best. But in Italy I tried harder, and it wasn't probably so impossible. But for a while I was really trying to become Italian at all costs. But at a certain point I realized that I'm not Italian. I come from Norway, I grew up there, and it's a fabulous country as well. And there is a professor called Nancy Adler from Canada who's written this process, and she talks about there are 3 stages. You kind of have to adjust to culture, and then you have to adapt to the culture, and then you have to accept certain issues of the culture. But that's where on the 3rd place, I think, and also on the adjusting, we sometimes have to be conscious thinking, how much should I accept of the new culture? I have to function here, I have to be accepted, and so on. But at the same time, we also need to be aware of our own cultural inheritance and be proud of that. And also, one thing I also seen with the years that have helped me is having communities. But it's nice for me to sometimes be with my own folks. So there's a Scandinavian community here. I go there sometimes because it's nice to be part of that. At the same time, if I ever want to be integrated here, I have to learn a language that's better than I do. And then I have to obviously also spend time with people of the place. So, but I think only being with the new people sometimes makes you lose the support that is needed also by being part of an own community. So I think for an integration is this thing of build relationship with people of similar to you and build relation from the new place to be able to integrate and at the same time have some rooting to your own and have that support for self-confidence. I also think now towards the future that women are playing a very important role. I think that all over the world, whether it's in politics, economics, society, businesses, entrepreneurship, women must take a stronger leadership role. You can see many places now women start businesses, and we should start more. We have excellent possibilities to do that. We can trade with each other, become conscious consumers, buying goods from the countries that are our home countries, and do business on our own. And also, I think the qualities that women have are also needed very much in the world. I mean, women are been nurturing families, and I think that's also something that the world is calling for, being nurtured more. So that's the key messages from me today, and thank you again for inviting me here. And it was a pleasure to meet you all, and I hope to spend some more hours with you here today. Thank you.